Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alliance live show number 52. Baby, we're in the house, and we're back with another episode of this wonderful show. And I'm joined by my co-host, my esteemed colleague, good buddy, the Golden Chinchilla, good old Maurice. How you doing today, bud?
Good, man. Yourself?
Good, good. So, some of you may be asking why Monday night, and it's a good question. Why 1:30 in the morning? Well, I had Father's Day yesterday, and got a little bit, got back a little bit late from spending time with my son, and just today, was with work and everything, a little bit of a cluster to kind of get everything done and set up for tonight. So, wanted to make sure we did the show this week. So we just had to do it a little bit late. So for those of you that don't get to check it out live, hopefully you'll check out the replay. But we're going to dive right in here. Didn't really have much footage to talk about because there really wasn't much new over the last few days, really over the last week or so, a couple weeks, other than the new characters like Lando that we discussed on the last show. But we are going to start talking about what we think is coming into the game here next, and I have some different thoughts about that. I did just recently make a video about my thoughts about what might be coming over the next few months in relation to some of the First Order characters from The Last Jedi. So if you didn't check that out, you can definitely check that out in my on my channel. Just go check out the video about Supreme Leader Snoke, and I'll talk about what what I think is going to happen. With those characters from The Last Jedi that haven't made their way into the game yet. But as far as what is going to be happening during the summer now, Maurice, I mean, we're right in the thick here. People are starting to go on vacation. The weather's getting hot. The beaches are starting to get populated. People are barbecuing. What do you think is the next big thing to happen in this game? I mean, do you think we're getting another game mode? I mean, obviously, we know the tables for ships are coming at some point, but I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm talking about like, do you think we're getting? Do you think we're getting another game mode this year?
Mm, I don't know. I don't know about game mode specifically. We might get an addition to an existing game mode, like maybe like a new territory battle map, maybe some new bonuses or something for TW. Who knows? Maybe yeah, I've wanted for years, but like another tier for the Rancor, like a harder tier for the tank raid. Some of the data stuff make it more current for the players that have played it hundreds and hundreds of times. Make it a little I don't know, something like that would be nice.
I would like to just be able to auto the Rancor. Let's just auto it. That would be
That would
cool.
also be fun.
Yeah,
You just log in. If if you sold the Rancor before, you could just hit join. It just gives you the score.
it
That'd
just
be pretty cool.
it just gives you 10 million. You know what I'm saying? And you're able to place first, because I mean, who really wants to go? Anybody who can solo the Rancor doesn't. I mean, they don't want to sit there and do that, right? I mean, like, and if you still want to do it, you still can, but they should be able to create a way where if you don't want to solo the Rancor anymore, but you have done it before and you've gotten full. Let's say you've gotten the full. What is it? 10,700,000, 10,800,000.
Yeah.
If you've gotten the full amount of damage, you should be able to get that damage again anytime that you want. You should be able to just hit auto and get the full clear, and then this way, if you, let's say, place pretty high with RNG that time, you could take first place rewards for that raid.
Like we had one tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's like prime time for a Rancor. 3 people hit it. Three.
Yeah.
It's getting to the point now where like wherever you post your zero, that's just what you get. As long as somebody beats the raid. No, I don't know.
I mean, listen, you shouldn't be allowed to place higher than anybody who actually does the raid. I mean, anybody who actually is sitting there and doing the work, yes, I mean, they deserve that. They deserve the credit for that. But if you just want to, if you just want to place, at a random spot and get the credit for doing a full clear, you shouldn't have to spend at this point, this late, this far into the game that we've been playing it for so long. I mean, and if you've done that like 100 times already, I mean, you shouldn't have to be still doing that. That's at least my thought process. I mean, you might disagree. Maybe you think that you should have to do it still, and you don't want to lose that part of the game, the competitiveness. But I don't know. To me, I could care less about Rancor raids or the rewards, and it's more just about you know really it's more about just remembering to do it to place the rewards. But I mean I've missed a bunch of Rancor raids too, so you know. Not that you should ever miss anything. I mean, you should take all the free resources you can get in this game, but um, I feel like that raid, it doesn't really give you that great of rewards anymore anyway. I mean, like you're talking about some guild currency or some guild shipment currency. You're talking about you know some gear, but even that gear has become so plentiful now. I mean, since we've been able to buy gear out of the shard shop, and now they put gear into the guild shop, and I mean, it doesn't seem quite as enticing anymore. Anyway, but yeah, going back to what we were talking about as far as like the upcoming events, I think that they didn't just do ships 2.0 for no reason, and I don't think that they're going to just stop at a ship's table. I think we're getting a ship raid.
Ship raid would be cool. I kind of feel, I don't know, the separatists have got to be coming, right? I think some sort of rework's coming because they're really pushing these Geonosian ships. So you're doing the event, right here, right now. Like they're really pushing these Geonosians. They none of the three of them, the three pilots anyway, they don't have a Zeta, and they have slots for Zetas. I mean, and you think if they do the Geonosians, Dooku is required. A spoiler alert: you need a Gear 12 Dooku for one of the quests. So I mean, they're kind of forcing your hand to do him. They're forcing your hand these Geonosians. They've teased at a Grievous rework for over a year now. It could be coming, and that's something that would be cool. I would because a lot of these characters are semi unusable in the like character battles. So it'd be cool to get some use out of them.
Well, that's probably the route that they'll go because I mean I could see them doing sort of a Geonosian ship synergy and working on that before they create like Geonosian Commander or whatever. There's really no other face Geonosian characters. I mean, Pog the Lesser is really the one. So I mean, other than that, if they were going to put any other emphasis on Geonosians, I think it would be based around ships because I don't think they're going to do I don't think they're doing a Geonosian rework to try to make the Geonosians viable in Arena at some point. I just don't see that happening. So, I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, there was a hope a while back that would happen. I mean, I went after Sunfac in Chromium packs, and I wanted to basically max out my Geonosians because I was hoping that there would be a fifth Geonosian eventually, so we could put together a full squad. But even then, I mean, Poggle Lester's kit is so atrocious and so not geared around Geonosians.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
There's really no benefit, and there's really not a great leader for Geonosians at all. So they would need another component, like I said, maybe Geonosian Commander or something like that to make it an interesting squad. Although they do have good kits. I mean, Sunfac's kit is still pretty awesome. Counterattack, dispel, buff immunity. He's got he's got obviously the taunt, and he's still got one of the best protection pools in the game. So he's a good character. I just think that it's again, the rest of the other pieces that are kind of lacking. I think Geonosian Spy has some interesting attributes that could make them an interesting squad, but we'd have to wait and see. I don't know. I think that we're getting a ship raid, and I think it's coming sometime this year. And if they're not going to do a full ship raid, they're at least going to add a component of ships to a raid. Maybe they'll add like a ship component to the existing raids, which would be kind of lame. But I'm saying, I think that they're doing something. I mean, again, they're not just going to spend this time, putting all this emphasis into ships to just make it only about the ship table and a little bit of an improved arena. I think they're gonna go all out with it.
Yeah, a lot of people are getting upset that the ships, they weren't delivered as promised, but they're not done. There's still a whole element we can't even see yet. So I mean,
Really, what
it,
I'm
it,
what I'm curious about is what are you going to farm from the ship tables? Like whenever they do come, I mean, are we getting character shards from there? Are there going to be more ships that they're going to release? Because ultimately, right now, I mean, I have every ship. You know what I'm saying? Other than the pieces that we need, like the ship Omegas and the reinforcement abilities, which is really, I guess, the only chase left for They kind of nerfed all the ships, so that you have to get all these pieces and kind of like revamp the ships. But other than that, I mean, there's no, I mean, I have all the other ships, so there's not really much in the way of shards besides the Lando's Millennium Falcon, which I doubt isn't going free to play anytime soon. So I don't know. I feel like any new ships that they would add to the game, unless they do something like they did with remember when they released. Remember when you released what was his name? Remember when they released the Jawas when they released Chief Nebbit?
yeah, in engineering,
and they were just instantly put into the Galactic War store. And no, they were instantly put into the Cantina store and into a Cantina node. So
yeah.
something similar to that, maybe they could do. Maybe they could put like a bunch of new ships out and kind of make them farmable, and put a couple of premium ships out, a couple free to play ships. That'd be interesting. Like imagine they have like 7 ships that they're about to release right now, and when the table releases, like 5 of those ships will be farmable, and the rest will be marquee ships.
Well, you see them changing out some of these hard nodes and Cantina nodes now. They could put some of the existing ships over there as well to farm. Like you could have a TIE Reaper node or a Kylo shuttle node, just additional nodes temporarily, um, until they get, because I mean the rate they're releasing characters, I mean they're running out of places to put them on the existing tables. So I'd imagine we're gonna have like a hard node. Characters will be available in there, maybe some ships. A new ship or two would be cool. Just here, surprise, here's a ship.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be it could be a semi-generic ship, another clone sergeant, Geonosian spy type ship. That'd be fine. Something else, like the Resistance, or I don't think there's really any Resistance pilots left, but just something. Give us another Resistance pilot. Yeah, I mean, just an extra ship, just depth. That'd be fine.
That would be cool. I mean, there's a lot of ways they can go with it. I feel like personally, I'm more hoping that they decide to go with a full ship raid, or they decide to do like something like the Death Star, and they have like a ship component to a raid, and that would be sick. I mean, I would love to see a Death Star raid. Um, I mean, that's just the fanboy in me talking there, but I'm assuming that it'll happen eventually. I mean, I know that there's some stuff they're going to want to save, like for end game stuff, so it's not going to happen all right away. But I also think that they're going to there's certain things that they hold off on. I mean, like you have to look at like for example, Luke, right? They gave us another version of Luke with a lightsaber, but they didn't give us Return of the Jedi Luke because they're still saving that guy. I mean, they want to wait, and partly that's because they don't want people to think that like the game is on the way out, and that they're running out of characters to get. There's so many Star Wars characters that are in the universe that are cool, and if you open up the books to the let's say the Knights of the Old Republic, like some of these characters that are here in the game right now. It's even more, like obviously, we have Visas Mar now, and we have Scion and Darth Trai, and all these other characters. But I mean, there's so many that that would be really cool to add to the game. So I don't think we're anywhere near the end. I mean, again, we're still waiting for Darth Revan. We're still waiting for Return of the Jedi Luke. I mean, they could add, if they wanted to go into Legends, they could add Abeloth, which is one of the, I mean, she's the mother of the family on Mortis. So I mean, they could release the brother and the sister from Mortis, which would be sick too. I mean, if you just think about all the possibilities, it's kind of nuts actually. So you know, they have still a lot of Clone Wars characters they could release. They still have, they still haven't put. I kind of thought after Rogue One they were going to put what's his name in here, right? They were going to put Saw Gerrera.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't happen, and I can't imagine another unless they decide to make a TV show about Saw Gerrera or something like that. Another, opportunity to bring Saw Gerrera into the game. I don't see a Rising anytime soon, so I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of curious why they didn't do that back then, but I guess they broke out so many. I mean, like we got Pow, we got Biston, but no Saw Gerrera. He's like the main character, one of the main characters in the movie, and we didn't get that character, but we got characters that got literally zero screen time. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Well, unless they surprise us with some legendary event or something, I think the Rogue One's pretty much done. I don't think they're gonna bring anything else from that movie.
Well, he's not just a Rogue One character. I mean, he's also a Clone Wars character. So he
Yeah.
could if they decide to bring out a new clone, right? There's several clones from the TV show that still aren't here. I mean, like for example, um, there's also like an older clone. His name, oh man, what was his name? He was like he didn't really fight anymore. He was like his aging process was like he was aging too fast. Like the clones are set to age faster than normal people because they don't want to go through the whole childhood phase. They want to have the clones be soldiers. So that's why Rex you could see is like older than he should be. But what they did was they had one clone that was like much older. I forget what his number was or what his name was. Maybe it was 99 or something. I forget what his name was, but he actually like sacrificed himself for the other clones, and there's a whole like episode dedicated to this guy. He's like a much older clone. Like he had like an accelerated aging process, and he would just like was like much older looking than all the other clones because of the fact that he just was growing at a faster rate and aging at a faster rate than they were. So there's several clones that again didn't make it. I mean, Saul Guerrero could be one. I mean, he's not a clone, but I'm saying like, he could be one of the characters from the Clone Wars that just still hasn't been brought in
Yeah. Perhaps, man.
I'm just saying that there's a lot of ways they can go. There's still a lot of characters they could bring in here, so we're not like really limited in any way. But we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a ship raid or like I said, something related to ships in that regard. But I'm not holding my breath. I don't think we're getting anything like that very soon. And if we did, I'm sure it would be. I'm sure it would be kind of like an addition to something else. Because I mean, adding another raid. Because let's say they did that, okay, just for example, let's say they made a ship raid. I mean, they would be sacrificing doing anything else, right? And do you think that this game is not in need of like another character game mode? Still, that's kind of the weird part about like focusing on ships is, I feel like then they're going to be taking away their focus on something else they could be doing for the characters. So it would have to be something like that would be kind of incorporating both, like maybe a Death Star raid, which would include like both, ground battle and, air battle. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't think there's enough ships right now. I mean, they'd have to give us. They just have to drop the bomb on us. There's just not enough for a raid. I don't know. Like it'd be a lot different than the character one because the character ones, when the guilds are starting, everyone's just throwing team after team after team, zerging, trying to beat it down. With ships, just like throw your team, done. And that's all you can do. Like you don't really, you don't have anything that you can just throw in at the end, like P4 of the Rancor, or like Treya. Like when you get down to Treya and P4 now, the Sith, and people are just spamming stuff at it.
Yeah.
Like this. I mean, it'd have to be a real concise type, organized approach. You could have people just going in there wasting. You need everybody to attack. They like to push the guild stuff. They like to apply pressure in game to improve your roster through guilds. So, I mean, it's a possibility.
That's the name of the game, is peer pressure.
Yes, indeed.
Do you get peer pressured by your guild, Maurice?
No,
Do they force you into making purchases that you regret later on?
no. We really try to avoid that.
Yeah, no.
I told everybody they need to gear nest, but I didn't tell anybody they need to purchase nest. Your little 3-star is perfectly fine.
I got a little 4-star nest, and my nest is perfect just the way my nest is.
Hell yeah.
I spent the $10 on nest, and there she where is she? There she is right there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, actually very effective at 4 stars. Worth it. Worth the $10 for the extra couple shards.
I saw that little Cassian Zeta slipped in there. I saw that.
Don't talk about my Cassian Zeta.
I saw it.
My Cassian Zeta is awesome. I actually have a Zeta on all of them. I have a Zeta on K2SO also, and that's the one I really don't want to talk about. K2SO Zeta. That's embarrassing. That's kind of like a K2SO Zeta. That's kind of like a POW
I gear
Zeta.
12 Tim, and I try. You're lagging.
This is it right here. K2SO gains 1% max protection whenever he takes damage.
Yeah, that's a character I've tried to make work multiple times. I have him gear 12. He's pretty awful.
Let me close out some stuff here.
Yeah, I think is it cutting out a little bit?
No, I saw that there was a little bit of a lag, but that's because we're looking at the you're looking at the delayed view there on my screen. But yeah, I mean, again, K2SO. There's always Zetas you regret, and I'd have to say, like, which would you say is the Zeta you regret the most?
Cody.
Cody, really? Because I actually like Cody as a character. I mean, he's a pretty cool, character. But I mean, yeah, I don't know.
But I got my use out of it. But now I got nothing for it. Four Boy Luke was average. That was a questionable decision. Cody. Rest of them I kind of use.
Yeah, I don't really think you can go wrong with the clones, even though it's they're not really meta right now. I think that they have other. The only problem with Cody is he doesn't have a ship, so it's like he's like the one clone that doesn't have a ship, so it kind of sucks. But at the same time, well, Echo doesn't have one either. But there was a time period where those were, the Cody Zodi teams were awesome. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you got your value out of them for the heroic AAT when that time was when that raid was important.
Oh yeah.
I personally never went for clones. I've avoided the clones like the plague. So I mean, my clones period, like my 5s, all my clones just kind of they're pretty weak. But fortunately they've never really been that important. So other than getting higher scores in that raid, that really was the only reason to go all out with those clones. But I'm sure that they'll find a reason for me to have to Zeta my Cody and put together that whole squad at some point.
I'll just release another one and rework them.
Yeah.
I mean, they need one. I mean, they need a rework bad, but they were never like marquee type a team. They had one use in the tank raid, or multiple uses in that tank raid, but they were never good in arena. They were Chromium Pack exclusive for so long. There's no one really had that much interest in them outside of the little maybe 3-month window for tank. But people are Zetaing stuff now. They'll probably never use later on for the Sith raid just to get it done.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think. I don't think anybody who's spent money on Echo or Cody, really feels fantastic about that investment.
No.
You know, no. But I mean, like, because they were Chromium Pack exclusives. You had to, you had to get a bunch of shard shop currency to get those characters. And Rex was a little different. He was early on. He was back when Chromiums were still an awesome thing. I guess like they were still kind of, you know, it was still early in the game. Not that Chromiums were ever like an awesome thing, but I'm saying like it was still early enough in the game. I guess for me at least personally, everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different because I mean, if you come to the game now, it may make sense to buy some Chromiums if you want to, get a good head start. But back when I first started playing the game, when there was only a certain amount of exclusive characters at that time, Rex was so important in the game, and he was exclusive, and I had that exclusivity because I bought that for almost like a year and a half because he was one of the characters that they took forever to put into like a free to play location. So there was a tremendous benefit to having Rex for almost like a year when nobody else had him, because he was a Chromium exclusive. So I'm kind of glad I got him out of there because, had I known that I would have had to wait like a year and a half to get him, or get another opportunity to get him, it wouldn't have been cool. And the way Chromiums work is they kind of work in spurts. Like when a character comes out, that character drops like crazy for a couple of days, but after that, you rarely get the character. So it was much faster farming him at that time than it would have been if let's say I'd waited and tried to get Rex much later on. Is that still the way Chromiums work? I mean, do characters drop like crazy, like when they're new for?
Oh God, I have no idea. It's been a long, long time. The last time I bought one Chromium, I don't know why I did it, but it was like right when Crew was in there. I did get a lot of Crew. I mean, that's just one pack though. It's like a super small
Yeah,
sample size. I think like Crazy Excuses did 5 or 6 packs, and she got a bunch of the Crew stuff too.
yeah.
So I don't know. I there's so many characters now. I got so many characters I'm working on. I don't need any new ones. I got enough.
I hear you. All right, let's move on to this week's meta report. There's some interesting stuff to look at here. We actually have Darth Trai moving up the chain here to. I mean, she was already number 5 last week, but I mean now she's getting dangerously close to Rex, and I think she's going to overtake Rex probably. I'd say within the next. I'd say within the next 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, you'll see Darth Trai pass Rex, and you'll see eventually Darth Trai pass Ray Jedi Training because Rex is right behind Ray Jedi Training. So, she's going to climb right up that list, probably surpass Commander Luke Skywalker, and become, number 2. I'd say within the next, let's see, 918. I'm going to go ahead and guess within the next 30 to 45 days she'll be number 2 in this game.
Well, she'll be dipping into a lot of that Palpatine too.
Yeah.
So if she does take number 2, it's still going to be pretty evenly distributed 2, 3, and 4. Because a lot of people they're so heavily invested in Rey, and they're like their main raid team, so they're kind of just using them in arena just so they don't have to remod every single day. A lot of people are just kind of taking 5th or 10th place with their raids just so, because they got to set up for the raid, they got to set up for TW. You can't spend with so much time in the game, like you can't just sit there and remod every single day for arena.
Hera Syndulla still holding on strong at number 10. Hera Syndulla. What the heck? What's going on with Hera Syndulla?
Well, a lot of people last week said it's from the early shards. And when I've started alts in the past, it's always Phoenix, 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 Phoenix.
Well, it makes
that's a lot.
No, that is a lot, but it does make sense, right? If you think about the fact that probably one of the first characters you want to get. I mean, when we get to the next list, squad members, who's at the top there. So, and that guy, you need Phoenix to get him. So, I mean, to get Thrawn, Hera and the rest of the Phoenix squad is a necessity. So it makes sense. They're easy to farm. They're rebels, and they're a Phoenix. So I mean, they can literally do everything for you. They can give you the They can give you the characters that you need to get Palpatine, right? They can give you the characters that you need to get Thrawn, all in one. Plus, they're a decent faction to run, I guess, in early arena because their synergy, ever since they got those Zetas and the rework, actually is much better. I think that they really got a bad rap because they came out kind of incomplete at first, the Phoenix Squad, and they didn't have any Zetas and they weren't really at their max potential. But then they got a rework later on, and their potential definitely increased. But their time in the spotlight had passed. So I do still believe that their synergy is actually pretty decent and can actually be a pretty good TW defensive team if you have them all gear 12 and Zeta. But yeah, I mean, Emperor Palpatine clearly, ahead of the pack here. The real interesting thing besides what we discussed so far is Wedge Antilles is still in the mix there. I mean, you think he's gonna get knocked out of the top 10 soon?
The more Treyas, I don't know. We'll see. That's just a team a lot of people are climbing with.
Isn't he super squishy still? I mean, to me, it seems.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I think Nest will more and more people are going to put Nest on their triumphant team, and that will shut that down. So that's going to trickle off a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's effective. I mean, there's a guy on my shard every single day. I see him up at the top with Wedge, but when it's my payout and I'm climbing, he's already changed it out to something different. Like his Emperor Palpatine team or his Rex team.
So you might be using Wedge to take rank 1, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're not leaving Wedge in overnight.
No. These aren't. These are just like climbing teams people are using and take it out. Because if you leave Wedge in overnight, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, but that's our top 10. Top 10 leaders at rank 1. We're gonna move on to top 10 squad members at rank 1, and actually, Emperor Palpatine overtakes Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, do you think that's because of the Treyas? Do you think that Emperor Palpatine is becoming more of a support character now on Treya teams?
I don't see too much of that in my shard. Everyone runs Thrawn on my shard still. It's a whole lot of triumvirate with Thrawn.
He's still there, but I'm saying, Palpatine's passed him. So, I mean, are you seeing Palpatine on every trade squad?
It's either Palpatine lead. No one really uses him as support on my shard. I mean, but clearly people are using him as support because he's got almost 700 more squad members than he does leader. So I mean, there are people that are doing it. Mm-hmm. That is surprising, though.
Darth Trai is on the list. Number 10, and you know who's not on the list? Rey Jedi Training.
Oh wow, she sure isn't.
She sure isn't. That's kind of interesting.
Nor is Rex. Rex isn't on there either.
Rex is not on there. No. And General Kenobi is almost all but gone.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Kenobi.
Bye-bye, Kenobi. I mean, he was at number 3 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, Kenobi is now at number 9 and quickly working his way off the list entirely. Well, it's a Sith-dominated chart. I mean, you look at it right now, the top 5 are all dark side characters, with all Sith, with the exception of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and you have the few pieces left behind as Han Solo, CLS, R2D2, General Kenobi, and then Darth Trai making her way up too as another Sith. So, 5 out of the top 10 squad members at rank 1 are all Sith characters. And 6 of the top 10 squad members at rank 1 are dark side characters, or have a synergy with Emperor Palpatine. So that's pretty interesting. I'd have to say. I mean, I think Darth Trai, like we said, will also continue to rise up this list as well, and eventually probably be right behind Darth Sion, if not passing him at some point too. So we'll probably see Kenobi fall off the list at some point, and somebody else make a step up. I don't know if it's going to be Nest. I kind of thought we'd see Nest on the list eventually, but there's not a ton of people that have a maxed out Nest yet. So we're gonna have to, I think, wait to see her kind of work her way up the list like that.
Oh, just the same thing with Wedge. I mean, you could use her for offense, take her out if she is 3-star.
Right.
So I'm kind of shocked she's not on there. But I mean,
I
taking over Kenobi's kind of strong.
I think she will be. I think we'll see Emphy's Nest on this list at some point for sure. Um,
It's interesting seeing Maul. Maul's getting close. Maul's right behind Hera. That's a good solid team. Maul with the Triumvirate and Sith Assassin. That's a
yeah,
pretty good team.
yeah, it is. But Maul had his day. That time has passed.
He's creeping back up there, man. It's a pretty tough team. It's a tough team.
He is creeping back up for sure, and yeah, he's still got a good kit. I mean, that turn meter, that turn meter increase to start the encounter as a leader is tremendous. You know what I mean? So it's basically a huge speed increase. Well, essentially, basically a huge speed increase for those characters. So I mean, I think that yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be a counter still to a lot of those teams if you have the right components around him. And being that he's got synergies with Treya and Scion, you're going to probably see a lot more of that as well as time goes on. But that's our top 10 squad members at rank 1. And now we're going to move on to this week's top 5. And this week we're doing top 5 negative status effects, courtesy of the Alliance and good old Maurice. So, Maurice, what's our number 5 negative status effect in the game right now?
Number 5 is defense down, and defense down for obvious reasons. It's really effective, especially on a character like Thrawn, where his counter against raid bosses does defense down. Your characters just do massive amounts of damage, especially when you drop the Rancor, the tank's toppled, or just any scenario. Defense down, just I believe it's 50% reduction in defense, so you just hit that much harder. Pretty simple. A lot of great characters do defense down. I don't think there's too many that do an AOE defense down. I could be missing one here, but it's just a nice one to have, especially if you can time it properly with all the dispelling and stuff. I mean, if you drop the defense down and then just burst damage somebody, you can burst damage one character down pretty quick. It's good for very good for like single target high DPS type teams. We just use like a quick burst like Wig. I mean, Wedge himself has defense down in his kit on his basics, so it's a good overall debuff.
Well, that bonus that Wedge gets from defense down, he does a tremendous amount of damage if he sticks if they have so if there was somebody that did AOE defense down and you were able to stick him behind a Wedge leader, that could be a tremendous combination if they ever do that. But defense down obviously is a tremendous buff, especially when you're talking about coupled with Wedge Antilles because of the amount of damage that he does. But overall, 50% down on the defense is going to leave your opponents much more vulnerable to attacks, and this coupled with offense up on your side can be a huge combo to basically just wipe out your entire opponent's squad. It just has to be basically basically used correctly. And again, there's not a ton of characters that inflict defense down, so I think it's a buff that's kind of underrated. But I think that if they do decide to let's say put a character that or create a character that does, let's say, an area of effect that includes defense down or applies more defense down on their basic or something to that effect, you'll see it kind of move up this list at some point to be a more noteworthy debuff. But that's our number 5 debuff in this game, or negative status effect. Moving on to our number 4 negative
Oh
status
yes,
effect.
Asajj is AOE defense down. Thank you, DSP. How
Asajj,
can I forget? How could I forget that one? Huh?
that's your girl. I mean, how could you forget that one? I should have known that too. That's my fault. But so Asajj's AOE defense down would actually work really well with Wedge then. That'd be kind of interesting to see if I never really thought of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, number 4, ability block. Why do we go with ability block at number 4 here, Maurice?
Well, I mean, for the obvious reason, it just blocks abilities. Just prevents the other team from really doing anything except using their basic attack. Which, especially if you got a nice like a nice taunting tank up, and the only team all they can do is basic attack, they're just gonna just hit your tank. There's gonna be nothing else they can do, with the exception of the characters like Nihilus and Nest that have like a dispel on their basic. But just yeah, just prevents the enemy from doing anything,
Well,
anything at all.
well, there's several characters that do AOE ability block. One of them is Boba Fett.
Yeah, you got Boba Fett, you got IG-88.
You also have, I believe, Old Ben can do
Mm-hmm.
ability block with his mind tricks. So, yeah, I mean, there's a tremendous value to ability block because it really prevents your opponents from being able to use the abilities that are most important to get the team going, especially against teams these days that require some extensive mechanics to really get the team flowing in the right direction. For example, Rage Jedi training teams with BB-8 that need to get secret intel on their allies to try to get the team really going there. Ability block can kind of prevent that team from ever getting started, and that makes the ability block debuff a really good component against squads like that. And there are some teams that don't necessarily or aren't necessarily reliant upon buffs like secret intel that you can pinpoint ability block on certain characters like tanks and like characters that speed up characters like let's say Sith assassin, and prevent them from doing any of the things that they could do, or a Grand Admiral Thrawn, for example, and prevent him from fracturing one of your opponents or one of your allies. That can really prevent that team from getting going as well, and that can kind of turn the cards in your favor and give you a much better opportunity or a better chance to win the battle. And ability block is definitely one of the best debuffs in the game. I think probably should be a little bit higher on this list, but we'll get on to the next ones, and you guys can share your thoughts about it. But that's our number 4. Number 4, negative status effect in the game. Moving on to number 3, we have buff immunity.
Yeah, buff immunity, and you for one of the reasons you just mentioned. You got your BB-8s, your Jedi training Ray teams that rely heavily on secret intel. They rely heavily on foresight. You've got first order teams that rely on any buff under those crew leads to regenerate health and protection. Just taunters. It prevents taunters like Kenobi from taunting passively from Scion, Sith Trooper. It shuts down certain teams that are very buff dependent, and it's in my opinion, it's better than ability block. That's why it's 3. But you got characters like B2 with an AoE buff immunity really shut down any sort of foresight type of team. Just fantastic debuff. And more characters are starting to get this debuff. It used to be a little more rare. But, characters like Cassian, I think, do it now. You got just all sorts of characters. It's a really good debuff, and it's especially for TW. In TW, you got healing immunity, you got buff immunity. Those are 2 very important debuffs to keep in mind. You always want to have somebody that does buff immunity in your reserves, just in case you come across a first order zone, come across a Ray zone, that type of stuff.
Well, it is a tremendous debuff, and it was actually brought into the game by an Erodium character by the name of B2 Battle Droid, and it was awesome then, and it's still awesome now. It is a relatively newer debuff in comparison to some of the debuffs that are on this list. Ability block and I believe defense down were actually in the game at launch, whereas buff immunity was added later on, specifically with this particular character. And buff immunity is tremendous because, again, it blocks your opponents from being able to gain any buffs. And if you have an opponent that's really reliant upon buffs or taunting to kind of protect the rest of the squad, having buff immunity can prevent them from really protecting any of their allies or getting the team going with different turn meter bonuses and things like that they need to get things going in the right direction. Back in the day when you had characters like B2 that I'm sure we'll see another day in the light at some point because of the fact that he does area of effect buff immunity. AoE buff immunity is a tremendous bonus because you're able to, on top, coupled with the fact that he gains turn meter every time one of his allies is attacked, or has a 40% chance to gain 100% turn meter every time one of his allies is attacked. His area of effect buff immunity can really block a lot of these tanks that are out there. So, General Kenobi, Scion, any of these tanks that kind of rely upon being able to taunt to keep the rest of the team safe can be kind of blocked with this buff immunity. Although it's dispellable, when used correctly, it can be a hell of a debuff and definitely deserves to be on this list for sure. But that's our number 3 negative status effect in the game. Moving on to number 2, Daze, which is also a newer mechanic. Tell us a little bit about
Daze.
Daze.
Is definitely newer.
Yeah.
This one is probably so high just because of the particular meta we're in. Daze will just shut down any sort of turn meter gain or countering on the opposing team. It can assist as well. And just we saw it earlier. Emperor Palpatine is the #1 leader in the entire game, and what his leadership gives massive amounts of turn meter, and you AoE Daze, which a lot of characters have now. Like just Daze is everywhere now. You got Nest that came out. Holdo's newer character has AoE Daze. You've got Maul. I mean, you've got even if you put that Zeta for some reason, you want to invest a Zeta and scavenge Ray, don't do it. But if you do, she has Daze in her kit. All sorts of characters do that now. And it's very, very important to counter the current meta, which is the Sith, and it will even counter Treya to some extent. Just if you can get that Daze on Nihilus, he won't get the turn meter from the debuffs on Treya and Scion. It's a very, very important mechanic, and nowadays, if you really want to have some Daze in any arena squad, if able, Treya on her basic is what a lot of people use, but you want to have it in every arena team. You should really have at least a single target Daze available.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And Daze is kind of a counter to the counter, right? Because counterattacking is such a huge part of the game these days. When the game first dropped, there were only a few characters that had the ability to counterattack. Fives, Count Dooku, characters like that. But nowadays, you can see counterattack kind of falling onto a lot of people. And then you also have characters that have retribution or the capability of gaining retribution as a buff as well. So Daze can prevent characters like CLS, Thrawn, characters like that from basically, counterattacking you, and then also prevent characters like BB-8 or R2-D2 from being called in to assist on a Rey Jedi training team, when that's a huge part or component of that team that makes that team really work. Is the extra call-in attacks. Daze prevents that as well, and the additional turn meter gain that you're getting from Treya, and the turn meter gain that you gain from Rex teams as a bonus can all be prevented from Daze. So Daze overall is a tremendous debuff, and basically like Maurice said, you kind of need to have a character that has Daze right now in the game on your arena squad if you want to be effective. So overall, it's a great debuff and definitely one of the best negative status effects in the game. That's our number 2 negative status effect. Moving on to number 1. And this is probably going to be expected here because, listen, it takes you out for an entire turn. Stun.
Yes, stun. Stun is number 1. And for the obvious reason, you just lock the character up, and somebody like Kylo Ren's got the 2-turn stun. That's awesome. But again, it's very... Unless you bring Talzin on your arena team, you're not going to stick any debuffs on these Treya leads. But stun, just for the entire game, it's just a great element. You cannot do it on raid bosses, unfortunately. You can't do a lot of these on raid bosses, but just completely neutralize a character for one full turn. If Nihilus is coming up on his Annihilate, it's his Annihilate's turn. You stun him, delay him a turn. It's a key element to have to manage the opposing team.
Yeah, I agree. And yes, having a 2-turn stun like Kylo Ren does is tremendous. But stun overall can really can really be a good tool if used correctly against certain characters. Again, you want to stun R2D2 to prevent him from taunting, or not taunting, but from smoke screening, to kind of give a passive taunt to that other squad and protect other characters that you need to take out. You want to stun Grand Admiral Thrawn so he doesn't fracture one of your guys. You want to stun, some of these characters that basically give great bonuses to start the encounter. So that's why characters like Han Solo, who stun, are so important. Characters like Palpatine, for example, with his AOE stun to start the to start the encounter. That's why he's such a tremendous character in this game right now. Stun is such a huge part of the game, and obviously it's a little bit RNG dependent, but when it does stick, it can really turn the tide of a battle, and that's why Count Dooku was such an effective character in the early stages of this game. Aside from the fact that he was able to dodge everything left and right, even I mean, he was able to dodge everything. For a long time, that it almost seemed like it was cheating, but his stun ability was a tremendous factor, because he was able to not only stun a character, but he also had a chance to stun a secondary character, and old Daka has that same benefit as well. So there's a lot of characters that stun now, but the benefit is you're basically, if you use it correctly and if you have the ability to pinpoint, you can basically pinpoint certain characters that can prevent the other team from getting going, kind of like a lot of these debuffs. But that's our number one debuff in the game, stun. We do have an honorable mention this week as well, and that is going to be expose.
Oh yes, expose. Certain teams like Zeta Finn or any of the Resistance just really thrive off it in general. It was slightly nerfed for the raid recently, but as we all see now, it really wasn't the end of the world like everyone thought it was at the time. But just a fantastic. It adds so much damage to your team. Just like you see in these old Zeta Finn teams, just no one's really hitting hard, but they're just melting the opposition just because those exposes. You start getting to the higher arenas. I mean, they're clipping 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 every time you pop an expose. And those it's crazy damage. Now a lot of these all of these debuffs we did tonight are relatively common. Like, of course, things like Death Mark and Fracture and Shock, all those are fantastic, but they're only on one. Shock, I think, is on 2 characters. So I mean, all of these are pretty common. It wouldn't feel right to do a debuff without expose on it.
Agreed. Expose is a tremendous debuff, and the reason the screen keeps flipping here is because I'm pressing one of the hotkeys. So I'm trying to type into the chat here for you guys. But expose is a tremendous debuff, and like you said, the reason that we're not adding some of these other debuffs like fracture, isolate, some of these other things is because they're kind of specific to certain characters, and these buffs are a little bit more I guess universal, in the sense that there's other characters that can use them. Obviously fracture is great for Thrawn, and I think that isolate is a tremendous debuff, but expose can be done by multiple different characters, and we're trying to kind of give a benefit to characters that can be used, or debuffs that can be used in a more broader sense. So expose is fantastic because in a Rage Jedi training team, for example, it gives turn meter to characters like Resistance Trooper. It is a tremendous benefit because these days, with characters that have almost endless protection with some of their passive abilities or uniques, expose can help take some of these characters out. It's very difficult to take out characters like Kylo Ren without expose. It's difficult to take out characters like Enfys Nest without expose. Some of these things can really help benefit your squad, and that's really the main reason why you see this here on the list. But that's just our thoughts on the top 5 negative status effects. Obviously, there are some other unique status effects that could have been on this list or could have been mentioned. But that's why we do these things. It's always up for debate and discussion. And if you guys have any thoughts about it, write it into the chat, and we'll discuss it here, in the next segment as we get into the questions and answers here. But if you guys like that, leave a like on the video. I'm going to move on now back to some gameplay. But that was our top 5 negative status effects, courtesy of the Alliance and good old Maurice. And next week we'll be back with another top 5, and that's going to be a surprise. I believe we're going to be doing a top 5 that we haven't done in a while. I believe we're actually going to be doing, sorry, not top 5. We're actually be doing top 10 characters or top 10 Zetas next week. So look forward to that. But now let's get back to some gameplay and do some questions. If you guys have any questions that you'd like to have asked on the stream, or if you have any topics that you'd like to discuss, now is the time.
Yeah, put them in the chat and I'll scoop them up. Thane Kyrell has a 17-part question here.
Yeah. I was trying to type that into the chat earlier. I was like, while we were doing the top 5, I was trying to type in, like, if you guys have any questions, type them into the chat, and that's why the screen kept changing the picture, like it kept moving, so it's like, sorry about that, guys. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, let me think. Thane Kyrell, do you guys think we were getting Gear 12 and a half? A few weeks ago, or a few weeks, it's been probably a month and a half, 2 months now, where they said, when they scaled back the raid rewards, they kind of suggested that the other 3 pieces were ready, and they were going to include those in the boxes as well. I don't remember the specifics, but there are different pieces that they've been working on to complete, I guess, Gear 12. I guess he asked, do you guys think we are getting 12 and a half within the next week or next? Do you guys think we were getting Gear 12 and a half with week or next? And then it says, with Gear 12 and a half, do you think it will make Gear 11 tunes obsolete?
I don't know if we're getting them in the next week and a half, but I do think that the gear, whenever they do add more gear pieces, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to run Gear 11 characters. But I don't think they'll be obsolete. I think characters like a Gear 11 Nest will still be viable. I just think certain characters, may not still, be a viable option. I do think that Scion, though, and Nest will still be, good at, Gear 11, 5 or 6 stars. It's just going to depend on the other components. And even then, I mean, again, these are basically dependent on your shard. For example, if you're of a highly developed day 1 shard, it doesn't really matter whether you have a Gear 11 character or not. It's going to matter more about the mods that you have and how fast those characters are, and if you're able to compete with the speed of your shard. And that's usually the case. Is speed is the name of the game right now, and it kind of always is. Even going back to when the game started, the fastest characters go first, and they have the best chance to win, and they get to go more frequently than the other characters. So I mean, you just have to just take a look and see. But I think yeah, whenever it does come, it'll add a benefit, but I don't know how much of a benefit.
Yeah, and I think when they do, if and when it comes, I think there will be a level cap increase to go with it, because maybe some of these new pieces you have to be level 86 to equip, level 88, level 90. So, and I don't know. I think we'll get a level cap increase before Gear 13, but I could be wrong. When you said it too, pretty much answered the question. If you got the mods to do it, you can run whatever you want. You can run Gear 10 characters if you have the fastest mods in your shard. But if you don't have those top mods on your shard, you will need all the protection, all the health, all the defense, just as all the gear you can stuff on your characters, just because you're gonna have to survive an extra hit or two. So like you said, it all depends on your mods.
Really, that's the main thing, yeah.
And then his next question, Do you guys think that Gear 12 and a half, Gear 12.5 will hurt those that went after Wampa and Hermit Yoda, since they will have more catching up to do? No.
No.
You have Wampa and Hermit Yoda.
You have Wampa and Hermit Yoda, and those are two fantastic characters.
Yeah.
And again, Gear. I don't think there's going to be a tremendous difference between Gear 12 and Gear 12 and a half, or even Gear 13. The main thing again is going to be mods, because you have to think about what they're going to include in that gear, right? I mean, if you're thinking they're going to add another 50,000 health, then yes, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think what you're probably looking at is some more intelligence and some more, so some of these things are going to be kind of minuscule. The real thing you need to think about is if they add the speed element to the mods. That could change things.
Well, if there's a new speed piece, I mean, you could just purchase that piece. I mean, you might not have the multi tools and the bayonets, but you'll have the speed. So I don't think so. I mean, if you did go after Wampa and Hermit Yoda, since they were released, you probably have them almost done by now. So as long as you've been making good decisions with your current Gear 12, like putting them on key characters, those characters are probably going to be the characters you take up to Gear 13 anyway, the ones you already have pieces on. So
the name of the game is getting that top 5 ready to go, and again, even if they add speed pieces, which I wouldn't doubt, you're probably able to counter that with good mods. I mean, again, their ceiling may raise a little bit, and what I mean by that is that their potential speed could be higher than yours because they have increased speed from the mod. But overall, you could still have a better speed than them because you just have better mods. So, I mean, it just depends on mods. It's going to come down to mods. It comes down to mods now, and it'll come down to mods then, too.
Okay. Now he's got another question.
Okay.
Thank Kyrell. Do you guys think that CG will make the old Gear 12 pieces farmable in the new ships table?
I think that's a likely possibility. But as we discussed earlier, my guess is your guess is as good as mine as far as what they're going to actually put on those tables. I'd like to see them just release like 8 new ships and put them on those tables. That would be awesome. But realistically, is that going to happen? I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of wishful thinking. But that could be the route that they go. I mean, listen, maybe they add a whole bunch of new ships. Maybe they add a whole bunch of Gear 12 farmable nodes. They have to put something there. It would be cool if they also added ship omegas and things like that there too, so that we're not just getting all of those out of one location.
Yeah, you gotta think they gotta. You gotta think they'll make at least the reinforcement abilities. Maybe have a node there like they do on Cantina. Like, there's so many ships. It takes so long to farm that Barris node. It took me like 3 weeks to get a reinforcement, like a full 50. I was like, ugh. I needed 50. It took me like 3 weeks. That's insane to get them. So,
yeah,
we'll see. All right, Keyboard asks a question here.
Hey, Keyboard.
Did you guys get anything for Father's Day?
Well, my son got me a little cup. It says Happy Father's Day from his school. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And, we got 5 Luke Cage shards in Marvel Strike Force.
Yeah, that's what Grim said in the chat earlier, too. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, no, that's really pretty much it. Listen, all I need on Father's Day is a smile for my kid. That's it. That's all I need. Just a Happy Father's Day and a hug. That's good enough for me. But yeah, that was it. He made like a design cup that I'm probably not going to use to drink. I'm just going to use it as something that can put stuff in. And he gave me like a card that said Happy Father's Day, and they had like all these like questions on it, as far as like what do you like doing with your dad, and it's like playing video games and stuff like that. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I ain't got no children. So I didn't get any gifts for Father's Day.
That's all right.
But
You can.
I did bless my father with a smile, though.
That's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You just gotta give the love to the fan. That's what it's all about.
All right, DSP asks a fun one. If you could Zeta one character for fun that you don't have, which one would it be?
That is a good question. If I could Zeta one character for fun, honestly, Sabine.
Sabine's a good choice.
Sabine Zeta is awesome, and I just never have the balls to do it. I always think about it, and I'm like, man, this Zeta would be cool. Phoenix allies gain critical chance up and offense up for 2 turns. Reduce Sabine's cooldowns by 2 on a critical hit. Stagger all enemies for 2 turns, and for each active Phoenix ally, 15% more damage, and expose a random enemy. It's a really cool Zeta, but again, it's really kind of dependent upon you having a full Phoenix squad, and that's what kind of sucks about it. But I guess if you ran like a Zeta Sabine with like a Zeta Ezra, you could put together like a decent synergy there and maybe make it work. But I don't know. I feel like if you were running a full squad and you had this Zeta, that's definitely a cool Zeta to get. I'd say Sabine would be the Zeta that I'd like to do.
I'm having a look here. That was a tough one. You know, there's one similar to your Sabine that I've always kind of considered, but never really considered. That was Stormtrooper Han. That's one that I always kind of wanted to do, and still kind of want to do. It's just not quite good enough. It's just not quite. It's just whenever Han takes damage, he recovers 5% protection.
Yeah, that's
So
his Zeta is actually pretty good.
I know it is. I just can't pull the trigger. And I guess if I just like really get goofy with it, I guess I'd do Night Sister Initiate.
Okay,
Just because
that's really goofy.
Yeah, just because I have all the rest of them, she just seems left out.
She's just kind of missing a Zeta.
And it's not a very good one. 30% counter chance and 50% offense. But you know, under that Asajj lead, 150% offense when you got full health is decent. Who am I kidding? Don't ever do that, Zeta. That's not necessary in this game. but
don't ever do Asajj Zeta. You know, no, don't ever do Night Sister Initiate Zeta. But I mean,
no, don't do that.
But yeah, no, Sabine is interesting. I like that one, and if I had to pick one more, I would say one that I haven't pulled the trigger on is Yoda. Now, Battle Meditation is pretty cool Zeta.
Talking about Hermit Yoda?
No, I'm talking about. I mean, I've pulled the trigger on Hermit Yoda's Zetas. I'm talking about Battle Meditation. Reduce the cooldown in Battle Meditation by 1, and gain Foresight for 2 turns.
Oh, that's where you could just spam the Foresight immediately. Yeah.
Right. I like that.
Well, it's been a long time since I've seen that Zeta. I haven't seen anybody use that in a long time.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool at first. All the Jedi came out with the Foresight. I remember when Zetas very first came out, everyone thought Qui-Gon Jinn's the best. They did Qui-Gon, then they did Yoda. And no, they're not doing too much with those guys. So
no,
we'll see. I started using him the other day just for fun. I'm trying to do that quest where you just beat, 5 Jedi. I have to win 200 battles. I'm just kind of autoing my way through GW, just fooling around with Jedi. It's kind of fun. I forgot how to play him. It's been so long. Ayla's a really good character. I forgot how good Ayla was too.
Ayla's like a really good. Yeah, she's a really good Jedi. I mean, she's probably one of the few Jedis that still works today. If you use her correctly, she's still just a little squishy.
We got one more question here. It's from Grim. What would you guys think if? Who do we think the first villain's journey would be? Could it be Robolegs Maul, requiring Qui-Gon, R2, Savage, regular Maul, Insidious?
I mean, yes, it could totally be that. I mean, that would be amazing. But do I think that that's going to be the case? No. I think our first dark side villain's journey would be maybe it depends. I mean, if they're working on a Boba Fett movie, no, because I mean he dies in that. So I would say it depends on what happens. I mean, it could be it could be. Just trying to think of like all the villains besides Darth Maul. I mean, I kind of wish that it was Palpatine, but that's never going to happen. I mean, they've already released two versions of Palpatine. I don't know, I doubt that we'll ever get a dark side hero, villain's journey. But I mean, it would be nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, we could always go the General Hux Snoke type route, I guess. We have all the characters for those, but you got to think of newer characters. Like they're not just going to give us a villain's journey with characters that we've had for 2 years. They're going to be included. There's going to be new characters that you'll need to have, like the vets for Rey. When Rey came out the first time, I mean, the vets were new characters just released, into being farmable. So it'd have to be, I don't know. Oh well, okay. It could be like Django Fett, maybe. I mean, we got all the bounty hunters. We got some new scoundrels.
I was thinking the same thing, but again, any hero's journey character has to have more than one iteration in the story, and Django Fett really only has one iteration, right? Like he's just Django Fett. I mean, there's no need for a journey. Like the reason Luke's journey makes sense is because eventually we're gonna get Return of the Jedi Luke, and then eventually we're gonna get Old Man Luke from the Last Jedi. So we're gonna get different iterations of Luke along the way. Same thing with Rey. We'll get another version of Rey when the next movie comes out. But that's what I'm thinking of bad guys. I'm kind of drawing a blank here, is because there's not really a ton of them that haven't already been put into the game. I mean, again, I'd say that if we were going to get a dark side hero's journey, it might actually be a like a Knights of the Old Republic character. Maybe it'll be like somebody like Vitiate or somebody like a Valkorian. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would make sense too.
Maybe it'd be like an old Sith. Or maybe it'll be the dark side Darth Revan, and then maybe eventually, because Revan eventually turns to the light side in the story. Maybe they'll do dark side Darth Revan first, and then we'll have light side Dark Revan. He would be a perfect character to do a hero's journey for.
Well, DSP said dark Anakin as well.
Anakin is the Anakin that we have here. I mean, he's. I don't know. I'd say that if we're going to get Anakin, another version of Anakin, it's going to probably be Padawan Anakin. We're not going to get another version of Anakin between the one that we have and when he becomes Darth Vader, because that's pretty close to when he becomes Darth Vader. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. I think that it'll probably be, if we do get a dark side hero's journey, it'll be like Darth Revan, Darth Malik, maybe we'll get like Darth Revan first and light side Revan. It could be also somebody like Vitiate, like I said, or Valkorian, or there's a lot of different routes they go. If they decide to do any of the other characters from like the books and stuff, like Exar Kun, some of those characters are just like pure bad guys. You know what I mean? So let's see.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
It makes sense. All right, well, we're gonna bring the stream to a halt here, guys. I will be putting out some more videos during the week. I have a movie review of The Incredibles. I went to go see that with my son over the weekend, so I did a review on that. You'll be getting that out soon. I have another Marvel Strike Force video coming out, and I'm going to be doing a couple of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes videos this week as well. So stay tuned for that. But we'll be back on Sunday, back at our usual time. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you guys have any questions or you'd like to discuss anything with me and Maurice, you can come join us in our Discord. Just follow the instructions in the description of the video to the ALLIANCEGaming.com, and you can find tons of other Alliance content there, but also a link to our Discord where you can reach out to us and send us direct messages or just go into voice chat to speak with many other very talented game players that have great opinions. We'll be back next week, guys, and I appreciate everybody sticking around late night for our makeup stream for Father's Day. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. May the force be with you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.